Sorrel, why did the invisible man turn down the job offer?
Monica, I don't know.
He just couldn't see himself doing it.
Oh my God. Bada boom.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to Spiritual Matters Thursday here at the Daily Huddle. I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando. Sorrel, how are you?
Dr. Monica, I am the way I say I am, and I am loving, powerful, and miraculous.
All of those today?
All of those.
Oh my Lord.
I get to say.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Ronald is here. Ronald, where are you? And what are you grateful for today?
Hey, I just getting started here. I am right where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And today, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for open spirit. I'm grateful for open spirit. Just be open. I'm grateful to be open, to have an open spirit.
I love it. And what an auspicious way to be for today's conversation. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. I love it. Well, thank you everybody for being here with us on Spiritual Matters Thursdays. Like I said, I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and today our topic is one that probably has besotted so many people throughout the centuries and throughout cultures, and that is, what is the difference between spirituality and religion? What is the difference? Is there any difference between spirituality and religion? And Sorrel and I, before we went live, we were joking with each other, handing each other back and forth cheesy jokes, but cheesy jokes with a nerdy theme. We're both nerds secretly. Shh, don't tell anybody that Sorrel is a nerd. Everybody believes it about me. Nobody believes it about Sorrel. And so one of the things that I love about being nerdy for myself is that I get kind of lit up when I find out like the etymology of words and things like that. And preparing for today's episode, I was looking at some of the etymology of the word, for example, religion. And the word religion etymologically means union. It means to put together. And so I'm going to define religion as a system. It's kind of like a group, a collection of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices, designated behaviors and worldviews and sanctified places and ethics and things like that, that together create a culture in the way that we relate to the divine. That's how I'm going to define spirituality for the purposes of our conversation. That's how I'm going to define religion for the purposes of this conversation. And spirituality is really almost like the ground it sits on, that it's the conversation around the divine, but it doesn't necessarily have an ascribed cultural set of beliefs or practices, et cetera, et cetera. And so with those definitions, because I always talk about check your assumptions and your definitions first, with those definitions, the difference between religion and spirituality is really the difference between the general and the specific, if you think about it. If you think about it, the difference between spirituality and religion is walking into a room and then choosing a corner. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Walking into a room and then choosing a corner to sit in. You're still in the room, and spirituality allows you to move around the room, but religion says, no, you sit right here. Right? And then Buddhism says, no, you sit here. And then Christianity says, no, right here on this couch. And then Judaism says, go over here with these menorahs. Whereas spirituality is like, I can be everywhere in the room. And all of it is part of your paradigm, part of your worldview, etc. One of the things that I loved about grad school and doing comparative religions, first of all, let me give you a little bit of context, right? The first, I have 2 PhDs. The first one was organizational psychology. And the organizational psychology is really because I do a lot of work with group dynamics and teaching teams and working with, you know, a diverse group of people. So I thought organizational dynamics would really support me and support the people that I work with and for in understanding how we relate to one another when we are in a group. So that was the first one. And then I realized that the more that I do the work that I do with leaders and with high performers, when I do my public speaking, when I do my trainings, corporate workshops, and things like that, that really all we are ever talking about is our relationship to the divine. And you might ask, well, how did you make that jump from industrial organizational psychology to comparative religions? And so for me, it just, everywhere that I looked, leaders are always looking for their source of inspiration and in the thing that grounds them, a thing that grounds them. And for some people, they'll use words like God, universe, divine intelligence. Others will use secular words like performance, achievement, etc. But ultimately, we're all talking about the same thing. And I remember a mentor of mine once said that the word universe, when you look at the etymology of it, here we go, come with me into the nerd world of etymology. When you look at the word universe, it really means one song, universe. And everybody's singing the same song. We're just using different words and different melodies, etc., but we're pretty much saying the same thing. And so this conversation around the difference between religion and spirituality really brings that, highlights that distinction and brings it to the fore, because then you get to see, well, what are the pieces of the ways in which I was raised or the things that I'm accustomed to that I call my quote unquote religion? What pieces of those did I choose and which ones were imputed on me just by virtue of the country I grew up in, the family I grew up in, the culture I grew up in, the things that I'm used to? How much of my quote unquote chosen path of spirituality is really based on familiarity and not a deliberate choice of my soul? And so when you ask these kinds of questions, you'll begin to kind of like unhook or kind of like untie, which is religion, right? Religion is to bind together, and you're kind of untying the individual pieces so that you can decide for yourself, which one of these pieces do I want to remain here out of my own will and not because I inherited them? Make sense? And so here's a question for you. You know, every time that you come to Spiritual Matters, you're probably going to walk away with more questions than answers. And here's a question for you. What crises rocked your soul that you didn't have answers for, and you went looking to your spirituality or your religion, if not for answers, then at least for solace, for some rest, for some respite, for some comfort? Many times, when you look at the history of world religions, these things were born out of explaining the unexplainable. And some of these pieces came as a result of a particular time, instance in time that that culture or that group of people was going through. One of the cultures, one of the religious cultures that people are familiar with is the Christian religion. And when the Roman Empire was taking its grubby little paws everywhere, Before Britain was Britain, there was Rome, honey. There was the Roman Empire, right? And so when it was trying to control the world, it was like, okay, listen, in order to control these folks, in order to keep them all happy, we're going to have to take a piece of the way that they relate to the world and the divine in a way that feels familiar to them so that they don't raise too much hell, figuratively and literally. So we'll take a piece of their traditions and we'll take a piece of their tradition and we'll take a piece of their tradition and we'll take a piece of their tradition. We'll put it all together, religion, bind it together, and we will call it Catholicism. Because if you look at the word Catholicism, that too is about the unification of a lot of disparate parts. Go look it up. Go look up etymology on Google and look at the etymology of Catholicism and you'll see it. And so when I went to grad school and I started studying comparative religions, I was like, oh, this story of a messiah, of a hero, of a particular figurehead is common in a lot of religions. The same features of the story that Christianity has with Jesus is in Buddha, is in Muhammad, is in Heru, which is the Egyptian hero or messianic figure that existed tens of thousands of years before Jesus. And so then I started thinking, oh, so maybe I'm not reading biographies, I'm reading about archetypes. And then our job as people interested in our own spiritual maturity, maybe our job is to make sense of the way that humanity throughout the centuries and throughout millennia has organized the way that we relate to the divine and then choose the one that makes the most sense for us, the one that resonates with our soul, and the one that allows us to live a life that we are proud of living. Maybe that's the purpose of it. And there are some people, and there are some governments, and there are some cultures that raise the stakes, that say, no, you got to do it this way, otherwise you're going to go to hell. No, you got to go do it this way, otherwise, you're going to pay this big old price that you don't want to pay. And you'll be ostracized, et cetera, right? And so then you have to ask yourself, well, how much of my spiritual journey is a bargain and a barter? If I do this, then you'll give me this. If I do that, then you'll give me this. And if I don't do this, then I'll be punished this way. How much of my spiritual journey is a barter? And how much of it is free will? See, I used to play this little game with my daughter when she was little. Like, it's free will as long as you do what I want you to do. Right? And she's like, ma'am, that's not how free will works. Ma'am, because you're still my mother, right? So I want you to ask yourself this too. How much of what I'm doing is me freely choosing this because I want this, not because somebody's forcing it on me or imputing it on me, or because I inherited it through my culture or my family or my parents or my nationality, or because somebody said it was a good idea, or et cetera, et cetera. How much of what I'm doing and how I'm choosing to relate to the divine is because it's born authentically and purely out of my own soul and my own resonance. And you don't have to answer me, because I don't have your answers, but you do have to be honest with yourself. And if you don't like your answers, or if you consider your answers incomplete, we can go fill in the gaps for yourself. I remember when I was in Phillips Academy, Andover, it was the first time that I was away from home. It was at a boarding school. And I was like, ooh, this is the closest that I'm going to get to being an adult without being an adult, right? And as nerds would do it, I didn't use my newfound freedom to go get myself into any kind of shenanigans. I used my freedom to go to the library. Oh my God, I'm such a nerd. To go to the library and go find the stuff that my parents didn't want me to read. Like, why? I grew up Catholic. Why, as a Catholic, can't I read the Bhagavad Gita? Why? Why can't I read the Quran? What's in there that you don't want me to know? Right? Kind of like how teenage boys felt about Playboy magazines. That's how I felt about religious texts. I was like, ooh, I can't wait to get away so I can go see what's in here. And so then the conversation became, well, we're kind of saying the same thing. But these people are saying it in a different language with different names. The characters in the play have different names, but we're talking about the same person, or at least the same archetype. That's when I first got the idea. And then when I went to college, I remember collecting these texts. I went home to my dorm and I sat on the bed and I had the Bhagavad Gita open, the Upanishads, the Quran, different versions of the Bible, different religious texts, the Torah, a whole bunch of stuff. And I remember looking, mind you, I was not a religion major in undergrad. I was a criminology and psychology major in undergrad. Okay, so I studied how criminals think. So I may or may not have any felonies in my background. You'll never know because I studied criminology. And so I'm over here looking at all these religious texts, and I'm like, I think I had like my own Damascus experience. If you have background in Christianity, then you know that Paul had his Damascus conversion experience. And he was like, I said to myself, when I was looking at all this stuff, I grew frustrated. And I was like, I don't care what the truth is, as long as I get to see and feel and know and walk in truth. It was so frustrating to me because it was like, I wasn't attached to any particular path. I just wanted to know, what was I missing? Why does this stuff look so familiar, but also so disparate, right? And I think we all come to a place on the road in our spiritual journey where we have this Damascus experience, which is like the road, like the poem says, the road diversion, I took the road less traveled. And so the part for you is choosing pieces of what you're capturing for yourself that you can make your own, that you can sit your conviction on, or at least that informs your conviction so that you can move around and discern the pieces that your soul recognizes and resonates with. And so the difference between religion and spirituality may not just be etymological. It may not just be cultural or historical. It may be the path that you're on and the choices that you make for yourself. Your tolerance and acceptance and distinction between different paths. And one of the things that I recognize in adult behavior is the ability to let other people be where they are without it disturbing where you are. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Blink or nod if you resonate with what I'm saying. So it's not as dismissive as live and let live. It's more accepting than that. It's more like, I see you, I recognize you, and I respect where you are, and I'm not interested in changing where you are. And I'm not interested in you changing where I am either, because I respect and honor where I am. And I think one of the things that most religions have in common is that they all have it like they're the path. And spirituality says, yes, you are, all of y'all. So I'm going to open it up for questions and comments and banter back and forth. Let's see who's got something that you want to bring to the floor.
This is just a fascinating conversation. I thank you for your perspective, Dr. Monikah. As you were speaking, and I'm speaking just for myself. So this is what I'm discovering, that mostly as I was growing up, I grew up around poverty in Haiti. I grew up around lack, and I always saw the people around me turn to religion to soothe themselves from the uncertainty of the future, from the suffering of today, as well as the hardships of life. So religion for me had become that, like a way to get salvation now from life and living.
Like avoiding hardship?
Yeah, like, well, not avoiding it, at least making
dealing with it.
Dealing with it. I would deal with hardship that way. I would, there's the hope that the hardship would go away as a result of my faith and my prayers, right? So religion had become that for me, and religion had also, in terms of moving away from my relationship to the divine being the source of my my salvation from life and living, whether here or after, to say something like being enlightened. I'm now seeing in this conversation that what I would call being enlightened is still a form of salvation, because I'm seeking to transcend my own humanity and what is human about me.
That's good.
Right. And so in the end, I'm grappling with the question you asked, right? Is this free will?
Yes.
Or is it barter? And I'm seeing for myself, mostly it has been barter. I barter my adoration, I barter my faith, I barter my evangelizing in exchange for a more comfortable life, or the hope of a comfortable life. And I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, oh my God, well, that's what I do as a human being. Yeah. Maybe all human beings do it that way. And then I love what you said. You said, oh my God, and spirituality comes in and goes, yep, you are absolutely right.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you for causing me to think. And thank you for creating the space where I can now look for what fits and what empowers my bartering or not. Yeah,
thank you for presencing that. I think one of the biggest conversations that I had to grapple with myself was thinking, if I make a different choice, will that hurt my relationship with God? Is God going to be mad at me? Is he going to turn away? Are we not going to be friends no more? Am I going to hell? Like, what's the price I'm paying for me? Because, you have to consider this when you're bartering. What's the price I'm paying for making a different decision? And is my thought of God so limited that if I make a different decision, he or she gets smaller in my life? And I thought about people that I have deified in my life. Like when we're children, we all deify our parents, right? Our parents can do no wrong. They're like the ultimate authority figure. And when we're younger, our parents, like, oh my gosh, if we turn away, if we do something to impede or to stop our mom's or our father's love, that's tantamount to death to an infant, to a toddler, to a child. And I thought about that from the perspective of, as I'm growing up and as I'm making decisions based on, from my spirit, from my soul, from my heart, are the decisions that I'm making sacrificing my relationship with God? And then I thought, well, I mean, I don't know. Is God so limited that he's going to be like, I can't deal with you? I can't do. I mean, I know I made you, and I made you this way, and I made you think these thoughts, but I don't like how you're thinking, so you're gone, be gone. And I couldn't reconcile that. That's why I spent so much time looking for, like, there's gotta be a different. I'm looking at this differently. This isn't, like, there's a difference between truth with a capital T, and then there's like my truth and the way I have it. And I am humble enough to know that I don't have all the answers, which is why I'm always asking you guys to check your assumptions and your definitions, because then it's like you can see things differently, or at least from a different angle, if you're able to at least put yourself in check in that way. So thank you for presencing that, Sorrel. I really appreciate you. Stan has his hand up. Come on up. Come on up.
Well, I'm actually in my car. My wife and myself are in our car. We're actually on our way to a memorial service.
Hello, Stan and wife.
Hello. Hey, Doc. This conversation is absolutely amazing. And one thing I always have heard and really latched onto is that we all are seeking the same high mountain along many paths.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the things that we have allowed religion, probably more than any other force, to be a real dividing force.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the whole thing about it. We're supposed to learn that it's not about division. That's the message we're supposed to get.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the scriptures says that God is not an author of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more confusion based on, you know, around religious concepts, not so much the concepts, but around religious practices. And as you mentioned earlier, somebody saying, this has got to be this way. It's got to be this way. This is the way to do it. And I think that's exactly what it's not supposed to be.
Mm.
Exactly what it's not supposed to be. And so thanks for this discussion, because I don't see any differences in us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any differences in any of the ways that we choose to go about admiring and connecting with the higher force or source that created us all.
Mm-hmm.
And I refuse now at this point in my life to be persuaded, honestly, that this one way is the right way. I think that the creative source that made this world so diverse would never have locked us into this is a one way to do anything, because I don't believe the creative source is about a one way to do anything other than just love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just add, I love what you brought up here in terms of the universality of it. And what I heard in what you said isn't so much that there isn't one way to do anything, because there are. We do have to honor our differences. We do get to recognize them. Part of being a global citizen is understanding some of our differences, recognizing and honoring some of our differences. But what I heard underneath what you just said was, I'm not going to make that a punishable offense. I'm not going to make our differences something that divides us or that sets us apart. We can honor our differences, just like I know that I have different eyebrows than Sorrel. My facial hair is doing something different than Sorrel is doing. But still love the dude, right? We can still connect and recognize that even in our differences, there's so much more that we have in common. So I appreciate you, Stan, for presencing that distinction. Anybody else? Last call for alcohol. You know, alcohol, the etymology of alcohol is spirits. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying.
You
Brothers, I am going
this,
to
right?
that church.
That's for sure. But here, first of all, I need to say that Dr. Monikah, you don't fit the profile of a nerd.
Oh, okay. All right.
You don't fit, even with the nerdy glasses that I'm wearing, you don't feel the profile of a nerd.
Okay, got it. See, we all look different.
Yeah. I mean, I just have a few comments. I like the comment about being in a room and really taking a corner, defining religion, and the whole room defining spirituality. That's a perfect analogy for me. I was looking at that. For me, diving deep into religion, where because I think you started with the question of what happened in your life that really drives you toward religion, or where you went to religion for peace or for solace. I mean, that was in my brother's death, where I actually, really set to the time that I'm going to let this ride, and the only place I know where I can ride with this, or I can have peace, is really going into prayer again to my church. So that those are the things. But really, as more information becoming more valuable and people getting to really dig, it's really make it what you want to make it. That little voice, it seems like it's just a little voice. I mean, you relate to the power, to the higher power, as a friend that is, like that little iconic figure. There's Satan one side and there's God one side, and this pulling you this way, this pulling you that way. I think
that's a little reductive, but I'm with you. I'm tracking.
Yeah. I think it boils down to that, how much investigative reading that you do that allow you to be there, that to be on the, I'm going to call the right side, the good little voice, and the left side, the bad little voice. So how much investigative reading that you do that allow you to be on this side. So that's my understanding of it. And it's really good. It's a great conversation. Thank you for bringing it up. I mean, it brings clarity to me, at least. That's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Ronald. I appreciate you coming in and sharing that and contributing that. Appreciate you.
Good.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you, Sorrel, for your contribution. From Rose on Facebook, the Eternal One Diamond, many facets. I love it. And stands here, Ronald Virtue. I think I saw Cece. Cece, hi. She's not on a treadmill today? Oh, wow. Excuse me. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, for engaging in this conversation. I appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. And remember, some of our 7 tenets, we're going to do 8, okay? Starting Thursday, I declare, where's my gavel? I don't have a gavel. Here's a stapler. Starting this Thursday, our tenets are now 8, okay? So we are going to, Sorrel, you're gonna help me out with these. You have to love generously. What's the second one? Who knows our tenets?
Stress less.
Stress less, eat more plant-based. What else?
Eating plant-based, you got to eat trees. Eat the trees. Give generously.
Sleep. Get at least 6 or 7 hours of sleep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Shake what your mama gave you. And
That's
number
right.
8 would be?
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. That means your assumptions and your definitions got to be on point. Audit yourself. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We appreciate you. See you next time.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, family. Thank you. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.